Welcome to Movie Mayhem here at Superior Works Cinema, where we watch all the movies. Alright, today we're going to do kind of a special thing. Somebody requested to do all the Batman movies and Superman movies. We're going to do Batman, but what I thought it'd be interesting to do is kind of do Batman retrospective. There's been a lot of Batman stuff. So, as some of you know, I was a big comic reader. Pretty much, I think I've read almost every Batman comic made since about 58. And I've read, I read a lot of the ones before that in the Golden Archives collection. So, I won't say I've read every Batman comic, but up until about 2013, I would say I've read about 95% of every Batman appearance printed. Yes, I did read Marvel too, so I'm not like a DC-aholic. After the Marvel bankruptcy, I kind of went way to DC just because the writing of Marvel went so downhill at that point. And then they eventually kept changing management, changing direction, constantly retconning, trying to do the new hip thing that I just gave up reading Marvel about 2004 or something, right around there, where it was shortly after they retconned all of Grant Morrison's X-Men run, and I just couldn't handle it. So, let's talk about Batman. Is Batman my favorite character? No. Mine, it's always stayed the same. My number one are Aquaman and Flash. Then in the second tier, I go more like a Green Lantern, Superman, who else would I put in the second tier? Green Arrow, especially Mike Grell's Green Arrow. And then in third tier, I put Batman and a bunch of other guys. I do like Batman. There's been some great stories. I feel that he's gonna he always suffers from oversaturation. I think Batman's probably gonna be the biggest. Nobody has more stuff out there than Batman. Comic book wise, Wolverine might be a little bad on the saturation, but media wise as a whole, Batman's gonna be number one with Superman as a close second. So these guys got a lot of stuff. So let's talk about. The comics. I'm not gonna review the comics. We know what they are. So I'm just gonna go with the visual medium stuff. And I made a list here because there's a lot of Batman stuff. So there was two Batman serial type movies made in the 40s. I watched both of those one time. I remember, so I'm not going to rewatch all these either. Most of them I remember pretty well. In those cases, they remind me a lot of a very Green Hornet-y, very much from that time period. I think, honestly, the comics were much darker than the TV show from the 40s. Batman comics, especially in the 40s, were pretty dark. So it was a little weird. The TV show was much more tamed down. Again, you didn't have the special effects. The costuming is kind of crappy. They're black and white. So those are okay. Definitely not going to be my favorite by any means. Then you get, of course, the 66 Batman movie, which was came after the TV show. So a lot of people know the Batman TV show. And it gets either way too much praise as being the way Batman should be, or way too much flack for being too goofy. So here's my take on this. After the Seduction of the Innocent bullshit came out, and honestly, those kind of people, if you know from watching my reviews, I really, really despise people who try to censor what other people do. So if you don't know, brief synopsis, Seduction of the Innocent was a book that came out that effectively said Batman and comic books were brainwashing the youth, and they're going to turn all the teenage boys into homosexuals. That's the crux of it. Besides all the other nonsense these fools tried to claim. So they came down on them, and this is the time of the Red Scare, where people were blacklisted from Hollywood for supposedly being communist. I don't know if you guys how well you know history, but honestly, the U.S. was not that free. We pretty much, and in a way, still do have a fairly totalitarian government control. Now, it works on a different level, more through and what they did then was it was more of a mass consensus. Everyone said you were bad if you were a dirty red. However, there was no proof if you were a dirty red, and two, you're in America. You should be allowed to be a communist, right? But that's irrelevant. So apparently Batman is gonna turn your kids into dirty homosexuals and deviants. Now, why? Because he had Robin? Really? And yes, you can read into it if we're all perverts. We all know you can make sexual innuendo out of anything. But no, the comics were not doing that. So they came out with this. This is where the Comics Code came from. Comics Code effectively destroyed comics for over a decade. They all of a sudden, this group of lunatics, you were forced to pay them money to certify that your comic was okay for kids to read, much like the MPA. So you have to pay some ass clown to say your writing is okay for somebody to read. Now, this ass clown is also a tool of some other organization. So what you ended up with is these god-awful comics. I mean, if you've read... Like I said, my collection started in '58. So I had, for DC, I had everything '58 on. Marvel, it was started a little bit later. And they're awful. The comics are terrible. They're like reading bad children's stories because nothing can be intense or interesting. So you get a TV show out of this era. And the TV show... Honestly, the TV show was better than the comics were from that era. And you had... Another problem with the TV show was, too, all of the villains were played by very A-list actors. I mean, only Batman and Robin were B-guys. They were all these... Cesar Romero refused to shave his mustache because he's too cool to shave his mustache. So what you end up with is this extremely well-written show with very A-list actors going through the motions of this, and it is a very fun, well-made TV show. Now, as a representation of Batman, I view it more as a think of it like a parody, almost like a Monty Python kind of thing, and it works. It works very well. The movie, of course, is kind of the culmination of all that. And Julie Newmar is my favorite Catwoman, if anybody wants to know, because she's smoking hot, and. But still, the movie's okay. So that's all we're going to say about that. I got to go on, or this is really going to take forever. So, what do we have after that? We waited a very long time, 20 plus years for Tim Burton's Batman to come out. Now, of course, when this came out, it's a huge hit. I will say I like Nicholson's performance. I think he did a good job. I don't like the script that much. I have a lot of problems with having the Joker kill his parents. I think that's stupid. To me, it's much better having it not be a major villain and almost having him not necessarily know, and then having like the year one storyline where he found out. Much better. Having him kill the Joker who killed his parents, terrible. That I hated the ending of that movie so much. Keaton I like as Bruce Wayne. I think he's good as Batman as well. The costume, it's too rubbery, but that's kind of a product of the time, so not much you can do. I'm not a huge Burton fan anyway. The score, I think, is really good for the movie. I kind of like the tone. It's almost a little too cartoony to me. So, as far as Burton's first Batman movie, I don't own it. Because I've tried to rewatch it, and I just don't really get into it, so I'm going to have to give it more like a 6. It is... And keep in mind, I do not suffer from nostalgia, ever. I don't have that feeling towards movies at all. They're just kind of, either I like them or I don't, and if I rewatch them and they're not as good as they were, I don't really like them anymore. Like Neverending Story. It's like, wow, no, that sucked. I remembered it being better. So I kind of don't have that feeling when I watch film. It's more of a, I review it for what it is. Now, out of that era of Batman movies, his is by far the best. And it's a good film. I just, there's better stuff to watch. We have way better stuff now. So after that, we had Batman Returns, which Burton originally wasn't going to direct, and they talked him into it. Now, then we have all kinds of problems. I hated what they did with Catwoman. I hated what they did with Penguin. I don't care about the story. I honestly don't even like the second movie. I think it's better than the garbage third and fourth one, but it's just kind of okay. What are you doing here? Did you guys read the comics? What's happening? I mean, it's not hard. Catwoman and Penguin are not difficult characters, and they were just so strange. So I get that's another one I'm gonna knock down to about a 4 because I tried to rewatch it again and I just didn't like it. Now, Batman Forever and Batman and Robin. Well, let's talk about Clooney and Val Kilmer. Clooney, terrible. No, I like George Clooney as Batman or Bruce Wayne. No. It was just bad. It was bad. Kilmer, he's okay. I like Val Kilmer as an actor, but I didn't like him as Batman. Now, I don't know so much if this suffers from the movie, but they just weren't good. And the villains, like Carrie as Riddler, this was back to the '66 Batman movie. They were so over the top, and Batman hadn't been like that by the time these came out. Batman hadn't been that way for 30 years. So because TV was more popular and people saw more of that TV show, you have people actually thinking that's what Batman is. Well, as a comic reader, that was a distant memory to me. By this point, you'd had, Son of the Demon, Bride of the Demon graphic novels, Year One, Year Two. All the Batman stories were extremely realistic, gritty, and dark, which we wouldn't see for another 20 years until Nolan made it. And yet they were still trying to, Schumacher and gang were trying to capitalize on something that hadn't been around for 20 plus years. It just makes no sense. And they're awful. Maybe let's go Forever's first, right? Yeah, Forever's first. So 2 and a 1. They're awful pieces of shit. They're fucking horrible movies. They're bastardizations of Batman, and the movies are unwatchable garbage. Schwarzenegger is Mr. Freeze. Talk about somebody who just didn't get the character at all. Not Schwarzenegger. I never blame the actors. As you know, I assign blame to the director. Unless I know for a fact the studio fucked up their movie, director gets all the blame. And that was awful. So I'm sure that's no surprise, but those are terrible movies. So finally, we wait another 20 years, or 18 years after those pieces of crap, to get Batman Begins. So, a little bit of trepidation going in, like what's going to happen? We have Nolan, who's done some good movies at this point. Memento was very cool flick. Insomnia, very interesting, obviously, with these really big actors, of course. But how is he going to handle this? What are we going to go for, And Nolan wasn't this big name yet, so I was a little bit nervous. Obviously, I like Batman Begins. Very good movie. Overall, I'll give Batman Begins about a 7. So, obviously the good. Cinematography is great. Score is fantastic. Fighting, awful. The fight scenes are terrible. The fight choreography was just... I get it. Christian Bale can't fight. I understand that. And I get you want to hire the guy who's going to give the better acting as opposed to getting a fighter, but in the suit, just put a martial artist in there or something. I know they blamed a lot on the suit, like the maneuverability, but it didn't get better. The fighting was always terrible in the suits. And the cutting of the fighting, again, a lot of you know I watch a lot of Hong Kong films and have for many, many years, so that's where I set the bar. I don't care. If it's not a Hong Kong film, I expect you to come close to it. And TV shows like Arrow have done it. They have great fight choreography on a low budget. So there's really no excuse, in my opinion, for that. So that was my one big complaint about Batman Begins. The fighting is awful. But the drama's good. Christian Bale's Batman voice, it's okay. By this point, we'd had Conroy, and I'm going to talk about all the animated stuff after the movies. We had Conroy, and his voice is perfect. It's not so much that I didn't grow up watching Batman the Animated Series. I watched that already as an adult. So the first time I heard his voice on that, it's like, that's Batman's voice. And every time I read a comic, that's the voice I hear now. So, Bales is... it would have been cooler if he just had a cooler voice. More Conroy-esque. And I hate to compare him to it, but Conroy really is perfect for the voice. As far as the villains go, they're fine. The Roz trick, it worked good. I thought it worked good. The casting in the rest of the movie was really good, with the exception of Katie Holmes, terrible actress, who was replaced by Maggie Gyllenhaal, also terrible actress. I don't really understand that. It's like, Nolan, who I love as a director, and I have him in my director's collection, seems to be really bad at casting women. I don't know, the actresses he chooses, I'm always kind of surprised. Like, really? I think she's kind of awful. With a couple exceptions, but it generally tends to cast actresses I don't like. But, so I didn't like her at all. Now, we get The Dark Knight. So Heath Ledger died, and this movie made $1 bazillion. I guess the most important thing, one, this is a better movie. Much more developed. Nolan had more freedom. He'd proven, hey, look, I can make Batman and make money. So they gave him more freedom. He got to make, to me, The Dark Knight is what Nolan wanted to make. Batman Begins is what Nolan was trying to make without pissing the studio off and within his budget limitations. So, The Dark Knight, 9.5 for me. It's a brilliant movie. Half point goes off for the awful Maggie Gyllenhaal. I don't think she's a good actress. She just sucks the life out of the performance. Everybody else, however, fantastic. And I've heard some people say the Joker wasn't goofy enough. It's like, well, again, in Nolan's universe, he had to be dirty and grimy, but again, even in the 50s, the Joker was a mass murderer. He was a lunatic. Cesar Romero is not the Joker. Mark Hamill, while the most amazing voice of the Joker, they were restricted on the TV by what the Joker could do because it was on TV. He can't mass murder people. You can't. And unfortunately, I think that's what bothers me about censorship. Yes, I think they should have the Joker mass murdering people on the cartoon. Why not? Who cares if your kids watch it? He's the bad guy. It's okay for your kids to know bad guys are bad. Bad guys shouldn't be zany and kooky. They're bad. He's a lunatic. So, I really liked Ledger's performance as the Joker. I would have made him wash his hair. That was about the only thing I would have changed. But I liked him being crazy. I liked his no background. I liked his wanton evil vileness. The man's a lunatic, and it worked very well. So, for film, yes, that's to me he beats out Jack Nicholson. Jack Nicholson was too zany. As far as the voice, Mark Hamill again, he has the characteristic in acting. Mark Hamill has nailed down. I mean, absolutely perfect. But within the Nolan universe, I get what he was doing. So I feel, okay, he's okay. Wow, that still would have been cool to have like Hamill's voice with Heath's performance. That would have been even more entertaining. Dark Knight Rises. Most disappointing thing about that movie to me was Zimmer's score. Very repetitive. I'm not sure if most people don't talk about that, but that was honestly the most disappointing thing to me. Movie's okay. I'm gonna knock that one down to about an 8. It's fun. It's cool. A lot of good stuff going on. It feels a bit convoluted. That would be my major complaint. And it's still a good flick. Better than the old ones to me. There are problems with the film, but again, it still works. It feels to me like, honestly, it was a bit rushed for Nolan. I think, he had to get it out. I think if they would have given him like another year to work on it, it would have been a more solid film. But I do like it. So now I'm going to go through the gigantic list. Obviously, the Batman the Animated Series is fantastic. I highly recommend it. My favorite episodes, off the top of my head, Clayface's Origin, fantastic, and Grey Ghost. Just amazing episodes. So the writing is fantastic, the story is fantastic. Oh, and Freeze's introduction with his where we first learn about him with his wife, absolutely great. I mean, the Dini-verse writing was so good for Batman. You didn't have until they brought in Berkowitz, who I never thought he was a good writer, but he generally just hates Superman, so he ruins episodes of Superman in them. But the Dini-verse stuff is fantastic. So, Mask of the Phantasm. That was the first feature length, which actually came out in theaters, and I saw that in the theaters. Really good. My only complaint there is not as good as some of the episodes. So, anytime you do a movie of a TV show, you have that problem. Sub-Zero. That one was okay. It felt a little more kiddie. It's like they were kind of toning it down. but it was all right. Return of the Joker, that was the Batman Beyond one. Again, that one was pretty good, actually. Batman Beyond was a pretty good series. I think it would have been better had they not had TV restrictions. That kind of ruins a lot of stuff, in my opinion, but they managed to get away with a lot more, I think, in the original animated series than they were allowed to by the time Batman Beyond and Superman and that stuff came out. So, Mystery of the Batwoman, that one wasn't very good. I'm not going to rate all these by number, so I'm just kind of talking about them. The Batman versus Dracula, which brings me to The Batman. Oh, terrible. I don't know what. That's just a garbage show. It's stupid. I'm not even going to talk about it. I hated it. And again, no Kevin Conroy. Under the Red Hood, not bad. This is now we got to the newer series of the DC direct-to-video animated films. All of them suffer from the 70-minute time limit. It's hard to get a good story in 70 minutes. It really is. It works for horror slashers where the story is, this guy likes killing. Let death ensue. You don't need background. But Batman, I want some, I like the story. Obviously, Return of the Dark Knight, the two-parter, based on Frank Miller's. That, to me, is my favorite of the new animated ones. Really, really good. I really like that one. What else we got? Year One. Year One's pretty good. Doesn't particularly like the Batman in that one. The voice. Of course, I'm always going to favor Conroy. However, Peter Weller did The Dark Knight Returns animated, and he was actually pretty good. I liked him. He had a very solid job. What else we got here? Son of the Batman. It's okay. Again, that's the problem I feel with a lot of the DC animated is they're okay. Better than the Marvel direct-to-video animated, which are just, some of those are awful. The DC ones are always just, they feel too short. Assault on Arkham was really good, though. I did like that one. That came out very well. But that's not really a Batman one. It's more of a, it's more of a Suicide Squad movie, really. All right, Justice League stuff. A bunch of those movies are always hit or miss on those guys. Most of them suffer, again, Flashpoint Paradox. It just suffers from time. It's not, you're trying to wrap, 30-something issues into 70 minutes. It's not going to work. It comes off as rushed. Fun to watch, but rushed. For the series, Batman was in, obviously Justice League. Justice League, first two seasons, fantastic. Justice League, good. You didn't have the cool, two-parters a lot of times, and then or three-parters even. So you're kind of missing out on that, but still good. The Superman show, the best one ever, is when Superman has to take the place of Batman. That is a fantastic episode. If you haven't seen it, watch it. It's so funny. And just brilliant. Because he keeps smiling, and Robin's like, Batman doesn't smile. So that's a great great episode. What else we got? Obviously the games. Arkham Knight. Arkham Asylum. Really cool. Origins. Origins okay. Just too short. I went through it way too quick. The new one's coming out soon. Of course, I've got that on pre-order. So what is it about Batman that people like? He's kind of the every guy, right? Everyone can be Batman, theoretically. Not really, but theoretically. So he's got that nice, personable, relatable thing, and I've thought they've done well, and I think, like Tarantino said in that movie, Kill Bill, Batman is what everyone could be, and Superman is what everyone should strive to be. And I think that's a good analogy. So, what's my favorite Batman? Besides the comics, of course. The comics, they're way better. Just are. You've got much more to draw from. You've got a much larger ratio of stuff to read. So they're going to win hands down. But as far as watching, I'm still going to give it to Conroy in the animated series. Even though they never got to do a lot of the stuff I wanted to see, as far as the grittier tales, the portrayal of Batman. So let's minus out all the PG-13 and above stuff that's been in the Batman comics. It just flawless. Absolutely flawless. The villain portrayals were perfect. As far as that, out of the park. obviously we got that covered. Let's talk about the future of Batman. So we have Batman Superman coming out next in 2016. And obviously the fact that I have a Nolan collection and a Snyder collection, you can assume I'm a fan of them. Now, to me, Snyder is the only director to make a comic book movie that was, in my opinion, perfect. And that, I will give him 2 credits on that, Watchmen and Superman. I'll talk more about Superman in my Superman review. But Ben Affleck, I think is a great actor. I don't know why people mock him. He's a fantastic actor. Tell me the movie he was bad in. That's a good thing we talk about with my friends. And, you know, a lot of times I hear, oh, Daredevil. Like, he wasn't bad. He was great. I blame the director and the awful script. And if you look at the director's work, all of them suck. His movies aren't good. They're terrible movies. So that's not Ben's fault. I mean, an actor is paid to do what the director tells him to do. So you can blame the actor for maybe taking a bad script, but again, he's an actual real comic book fan. He was a comic book fan long before he was famous and long before it was hip to say I'm into comics. As many of you know, everybody that gets in a comic book movie, they've always read comics and love comics. Well, we all know that's bullshit. It's just not true. Look at the numbers of comic book sales. We know everybody isn't reading comics. So, you know, Ben was, and the chance to do Daredevil, of course he's going to take it. Why wouldn't he? You know, and at the time he didn't have the marquee value that he has now after he's directed and been nominated for more awards. You know, he wanted to take a cool project. So I get why he took it. I do not blame him at all for that movie. The other common one is Geely. If you've seen Geely, nothing wrong with his performance. The movie actually isn't bad. I don't know. It's not a bad movie. J-Lo sucks at acting, but she's always sucked at acting. So what's the difference between that and Monster-in-Law? I think it was just cool to pick on it. You know, a lot of people pick up on trends, especially with films, TV shows, and celebrities. If somebody thinks it's hip to start bashing them, everybody does. You know, it's like, eh. So I like Ben's voice as Batman. The storyline that I believe they're going with, obviously Miller's, it works very well. Schneider directing that and with Nolan's producing, I think we're gonna have probably one of the best superhero movies ever made. I really have high expectations and hopes for it. You know, after seeing the teaser, they're solidified. It's exactly what I envisioned that storyline looking like. So we'll see, but. Again, I'm a Batfleck supporter. I think he's going to be very cool. And what I've seen so far, it has not disappointed me. All right, so, long review, but we did Batman. So next time I'm going to do Superman. If you like this kind of thing, I'll do any of them. Obviously, you know, some are going to be easier than others because some guys haven't had that many appearances. Ooh, I didn't talk about Super Friends. Super Friends in their 8 different series. If you didn't know that, Super Friends actually had 8 different series because every one of them was retitled for reasons beyond who knows. But what do I think about those? Decent representation at the time. Very Scooby-Doo-esque. And what was funny was the Super Friends was portraying the seduction of the innocent era comics, even though by that point in the comics, it was dark. I mean, you're talking the 70s. There was, you know, drug use, death, murder. I mean, Flash had murdered Reverse Flash by that time. It was very kiddified. So for a children's show, it's okay. And there are some really cool episodes within there, but for a portrayal of Batman, he was almost like a secondary character. He was just kind of there because, like, we need Batman here with Robin. You know, the writing on those shows is very mediocre, in my opinion. So I realized I had forgotten that one, so I want to throw that in there. And that includes the New Adventures of Batman and Robin, which was basically Batman and Robin from the Super Friends, but the show wasn't very unremarkable. So there you go. Let me know what else you want to see. What are your thoughts on Batman? And we'll see you here next time in Movie Mayhem.